Hey everybody out there, my name is Tommy and this is my channel, Counting on the Big Sleep, and this is vlog number, 16, I don't know. But I just wanted to give you an update of what's been going on, about the jobs and stuff and the applications. I heard from the one job that I wanted today. Really nothing specific. He said that he's just still waiting on my drug test to come back, and he doesn't know why it's taking so long. I'm like, yeah, I mean, if there was a problem, they would have called me and said so. So still waiting. So I didn't want to waste the whole day, doing nothing. So I put in some applications today. Applied for a couple of different companies just in case this job doesn't come through. I don't understand how long it takes to do a drug test. Or to get results, but yeah, that's what basically it. Applied for some jobs today. Heard from the one job they're still waiting, and I was like, God damn, man, jeez. But I figure since I come on here, I come and tell you a story. It's something that happened a couple months ago, a couple months back. A little mysterious. The guy that lives above me, his name was Bill. He was an older man. He must have been in his 60s and 70s. And, I was out of work at the time. And he seen me outside one day, and I started talking to him and stuff. He was telling me that his car was, in the shop. It needed to be fixed and stuff, and asked me if I could give him a ride. So I said, yeah, no problem. Just, throw a few bucks into the gas tank. I wasn't looking for any money or anything, really. Just, gas money. If you want me to drive you somewhere. He was like, yeah, that's fine. So, I drive him to the store. And throughout about 2 weeks, I was driving him back and forth here and there. To the store, pick up medicine, to do things, to grocery shopping and stuff like that. So, but the last time that I seen him, I was taking him, I drove him, I think I had to pick up some medication or something. But, he looked at me and he said, hey, Tom, if things go through, me and you won't have to worry about money. Don't have to worry about it. If my plan comes through, then we're not going to have to worry about anything. There's going to be a lot of money involved in this. And I'm like, all right, Bill, you want to tell me more? He's like, no, I can't tell you any more about it. This is all I can say. I can tell you. So, that was the last thing I heard from Bill. A week went by. And, I hadn't heard from him. I hadn't, seen him outside or nothing, So I knocked on his door. There was no answer. No answer at all, So about another week goes by, still no answer. And then, around like the third week, my landlord calls me and says, hey man, you know the guy that lives upstairs? I said, yeah, Bill? She's like, yeah, have you heard from him? He hasn't paid his rent or anything. And we can't get a hold of him or nothing. I'm like, no. I said, I've knocked on his door a couple times, and I got no answer. She's like, all right, well, if you see him, tell him to give us a call and stuff. And yeah, I'm like, yeah, sure. So, I go back up there and I knock on his door again. There's still no answer, And about 2 weeks go by, and I see moving trucks out there, and my landlord's out there. I'm like, hey, what happened? What happened to Bill? And she's like, I have no idea. He just disappeared, Just disappeared. I mean, he left all of his furniture up there, his clothing and everything, They contacted his son. He didn't know what happened to him. Just kind of vanished off the face of the earth, So, I was watching them move all their furniture and stuff out. I'm like, man, I wonder what happened to Bill. It's just so weird that the last thing he said to me is that, hey man, I got this plan, I got this thing going, if if it comes through, we won't have to worry about money or nothing, you know. It just, you know, that was, and he wouldn't say any more about it. I didn't know if it was something illegal or what he was talking about, you know. I just, okay, but yeah, sure. You know, you need a ride or something, you know, let me know and stuff. He's like, hey, man, you know, you've been really good, nice friend, you know, I'm going to cut you in on this, you know, you're not going to have to worry about money at all. So, you know, as they were moving his furniture out and stuff, and I was watching and, you know, keeping, you know, watching, you know, looking at all the stuff that he had in there, and I'm like, wow, you know, that's really weird that Bill wouldn't, you know, if he was going to move or just go somewhere, you know, that he wouldn't take his furniture or his clothes or nothing, you know. And I talked to the landlord, and she was like, yeah, I have no idea, that the guy just disappeared. You know, the police were there and stuff, and, you know, I told him, you know, about what I said and stuff, and, you know, they made a report and everything, and, you know, I've never heard from Bill again. I honestly don't know what happened to the guy. It makes me wonder what he was up to. You know, did something bad happen to him? Because, you know, they called the hospitals and stuff, and he wasn't even there. You know, they looked around, you know, his son didn't know what happened to him or anything, so he came up as a missing person. Just sort of vanished off the face of the earth. You know, it's just kind of weird that he was talking about making these plans for some big money or something was going on, and, you know, so. But yeah, it was just, you know, weird. The guy upstairs, old and nice guy, just all of a sudden disappeared. You know, it just makes me wonder, you know, hey, you know, something bad happened to the guy or something. But he is listed as a missing person, and I've never heard another word about it. You know, the landlord said, you know, she'd never heard anything. You know, he just sort of vanished off the face of the earth. I'm like, wow, that is really weird. That is really weird, especially at the end when he's telling me about, you know, making some, you know, big money, and, you know, I'm not gonna have to worry about money or anything, you know. But yeah, that was just something that weird that happened, you know, a while back ago. I wanted to let you guys know, you know, just talking about some things, you know. I'm sitting here at the woods today, you know, didn't want to waste the whole day, you know. I put in some applications and stuff, and figured I'd come here and chill and get some fresh air and stuff. But yeah, the bill still makes me wonder, what the fuck happened to the guy? You know, I mean, did he wander off? Why, I wouldn't expect me. He was in his maybe late 60s, 70s, maybe. You know, he seemed to have all his faculties. I mean, and he had money. You know, I mean, he was an older black man, and he had money. He had some kind of pension or something going on. You know, because he'd whip out a big stack of money. You know, he'd put some gas in my car. I never asked him for anything extra or anything, and I never charged him or anything like that. I was just being nice to the guy. And I figured his car was broken down and needed a ride, so I, helped him out. You know, he threw a few bucks in gas, and that's good, fine with me. But yeah, the story of Bill, man, that's a true story. You know, man disappeared, off the face of the earth. Nobody knows what happened to him. You know, just makes me wonder what the heck was going on. You know, what the heck was going on? But yeah, I wanted to come on and update you about the job situation and stuff, and tell you a little story. Give you something to do, a little bit of my own little therapy session. I say a lot. You never, like I said, you never know how you talk until you actually record yourself. Say, I shouldn't say that so much, But yeah, just another day, just waiting and waiting. I applied for more jobs today. I just don't understand why I'm not getting calls, or well, I did get a phone interview yesterday from this one company. They fix shopping carts. And I was like, you guys fix shopping? Every time I go to Walmart or something, I always get the one with the broken wheel. I'm like, I never thought they fixed these things. You know, but they were like, yeah, well, we fix shopping carts. You know, we weld, you know, the little pieces back on, put the wheels on, new wheels and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound too bad. You know, said we will train you and stuff. Sometimes we have to go out of town, and you know they'll pay for a hotel room, overnight stay, and you get like $40 a day for, you know, living expenses, you know, for food and meals and stuff. If you travel, you know, out, you know, if you have to travel outside, you know, like I said, they'll put you up in the hotel. Doesn't sound like a bad job. You know, the base of operation is pretty close to my house, so, you know, it'd be nice if, you know, I had a phone interview and it went well. She said she'd send it over to the guy. Hopefully, maybe he calls. You know, somebody call. You know, somebody tell me, say, hey, you know, I need to start working. I don't understand why I'm having such a hard time. You know, unless it's my age. You know, because I am 58. But, it just, the way things have been going this year is kind of weird and stuff. You know. Like I said, I'm never on here asking for money or anything. I don't have any of that stuff. You know, I'm not, you know, I'm just, you know, telling you a story about, you know, how life is going for, you know, this year has been kind of crappy. You know, losing my job and stuff like that, having the IRS come in and confiscate my bank account, you know, and just not really finding permanent work. Yeah. You would think, you know, I mean, you would think companies would be hiring, you know, since they've been, you know, taking people off the streets and, you know, sending them back to, you know, El Salvador and, you know, all these Hispanic countries, you know, but that hasn't really been the case. And, you know, I'm not saying anything bad about, you know, I mean, I think, yeah, definitely get rid of the really bad people, but the way they're doing it is kind of crappy, you know. Gangs of, you know, ICE agents swarming on, you know, Home Depot and stuff like that. But, you know, they do catch some bad people in there, and, you know, I hope and pray that the good people, you know, they don't get swept up into it, you know. That's all you can really do. Can't really interfere with it. Like that last guy, he threw a Subway sandwich at a police officer. You can't do that. I mean, that's a perfectly good sandwich, man. I would have ate it. Don't be throwing food at police. That's not a really good idea. Oh, Lord. But I just want to come on, you know, quickly tell you a story and, you know, tell you how, you know, what the update is about the job situation. You know, like I said, hopefully, I always say hopefully. I've been very hopeful. You know, trying to be hopeful. You know, but every day that goes by gets me closer and closer to when you know, the rent is due, and, you know, and it's going to be late. If I would have started working this week, you know, I could have, you know, gotten at least a one paycheck and said, hey, here's some money, hold on, I'm going to catch up on everything, just be a little patient, you know, I'll take care of it all. I'll take care of it. But so far, no luck. Oh, man. But if you've watched so far, and the only thing I'm asking is I'll put some videos up here. If you can just click on one to watch. You know, some of them are kind of funny. Some of them are good, you know. I think so, anyway. But if, you know, just get the views. I'm not asking for people to subscribe or give a thumbs up or anything like that. But if you can, click on one of the videos, you know, just so I can get some views and stuff. Trying to build this channel. I would like to at least make it my first mission to get at least 100 subscribers. Would be nice. So far, I think I got around 64, 65. So, but yeah, that's about all I got for you today. You know, I hope everyone's having a good day. It's not too bad out here. You know, it rained a lot yesterday, so it's a little humid, but I'm sitting in the shade. It's nice. It's not bad. But alright, everybody, you guys have a great day. And I will continue with the video uploads and keep on trying. Keep on seeing how far I can get this channel. How far can I go with this channel? Alright, everybody. Thanks. You have a good night. Bye.